Hi, welcome back for today's movie recap. Today, we will recap the movie, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. In a race against time, an archaeologist named Indiana Jones seeks out a legendary relic that has the power to alter the course of human history. During the Allied liberation of Europe in World War II in 1944, archaeologist Indiana Jones went to Nuremberg Castle in an attempt to retrieve the Holy Lance of Long Guinness, along with another archaeologist named Basil Shaw, who was a professor in Oxford. But Jones was captured by the Nazis and taken to the colonel. When Jones refused to answer the colonel's questions, he was taken to another room as an astronomer named Jürgen Voller approached the colonel. He showed the colonel the Holy Lance of Long Guinness that Jones attempted to retrieve, and the colonel ordered his men to take it to the train with them, ignoring Voller, who was trying to tell him something. In the room where Jones was taken in, Nazis surround him as he gets ready to be hung. Suddenly, an aerial bomb fell through the floors and exploded. Jones struggled as he protected himself from plummeting to his death. Afterward, Jones disguised himself as a Nazi and drove a car to follow the train. He went to a car and knocked down its driver to steal the car, but as soon as he got into the car, two other Nazis entered the same car. Jones went along with them for a while, and when he saw the train, he abruptly swerved the car to follow the train, and the Nazis started chasing him down. Jones fought with the Nazis' vehicles and jumped onto the train afterward. On the train, he looked for the box that contained the Holy Lance of Long Guinness. And once he got it, he observed it and realized it was actually just a fake. Meanwhile, somewhere in the train, Basil was also caught and tied up, getting tortured as the colonel interrogated him. When the colonel threatened to hurt his family, Basil started talking about their mission to retrieve the Lance of Long Guinness. Voller then arrived, requesting to talk with the colonel again. The colonel was informed by Voller that the Holy Lance Jones attempted to retrieve were fakes, but that Voller had discovered a portion of the Archimedes dial, an Antikythera mechanism created by the legendary Syracusan mathematician Archimedes. The colonel was also informed about Jones being in the train with them and went to gather his men to look for Jones. Jones rescued Basil, and when they saw Voller, Jones knocked him out, and Basil took the Archimedes dial. On the train's roof, Jones fought with the colonel, and Basil, who was trying to avoid getting included in the fight, took a gun and shot the colonel with it. Jones and Basil continued on, but they were stopped by Voller, who had a gun pointed at them. Voller was demanding the Archimedes dial, and Jones threw him a bag that contained half of the dial. Seconds later, Jones and Basil avoided an obstacle ahead, but Voller didn't have enough time to react and ended up getting hit. Jones and Basil then jumped from the train for safety before it was bombed by the Allies. Years later, in 1969, in New York City, Jones had just retired from his job as a professor. After the retirement party, he went to a bar, not realizing that a woman was following him. Inside the bar, the woman approached him, and he was shocked to learn that the woman is actually Helena Shaw, his goddaughter, whom he hasn't seen in years. They caught up with each other, and Jones learned that Helena is now an archaeologist too. Helena started talking about Archimedes' dial, which her now deceased father had been researching but failed to find. Helena shared that researching the dial almost drove Basil, her father, crazy and that she wanted to continue researching the dial. She wanted to ask for Jones' help, as she believes Jones is the only one who can help her unlock the secrets behind the dial. The two of them went back to college and searched through the college's archives. Unbeknownst to Helena Shaw, she has been followed by Agent Mason, the leader of the CIA group that has been assisting Voller. Voller survived what happened to him in the Nazis' train and is now working for NASA under a new identity. Now, Agent Mason has been following Helena with Voller's henchmen. Inside the college, they were looking for Helena and Jones when a faculty member arrived and was shot dead by Kleber, one of Voller's henchmen. Another member of the faculty staff appeared, and the other henchman killed him. Jones and Helena retrieved the dial half from the college's archives, and Jones became suspicious when he realized Helena knew he didn't destroy the dial like he promised Basil. Jones started questioning Helena, who was gradually becoming more nervous. Just then, Agent Mason and the henchman came in, and Helena told Jones that they needed to go before running away. Helena ran away with the dial half and locked the door on her way to stop Jones from following her, apologizing before escaping by herself. Agent Mason and her group focused on chasing her down on the roofs. Jones was also trying to escape when he saw the dead bodies. He tried to call for help but got captured by Agent Mason and the henchman, who failed to capture Helena. They drove through the sea of people as there was some kind of parade and rally happening at the same time. Jones learned that Helena is actually a purveyor at auctions, selling illegal antiquities. She used Jones so she could steal the dial half and auction it on the black market. Agent Mason questioned Jones, who firmly told them that he had nothing to do with Helena's plan as he was just her godfather. Moments later, they had a problem along the way, and when they realized they couldn't go through with a vehicle, they decided to just walk through the huge crowd of people holding on to Jones. Jones escaped using a horse, and the henchmen stole vehicles to chase after him. When he got cornered, he rode the horse through the subway and went to the next station. He hopped down the horse and entered the train right before it closed, successfully escaping Agent Mason and Voller's henchmen. Agent Mason called Voller and reported to him what happened, and Voller was stunned when he found out that Helena Shaw is Indiana Jones' goddaughter. Meanwhile, Jones reached out to his old friend, Sala, who is a cab driver, so he could take him to the airport. Jones traveled to Tangier, where the auction was taking place, so he could disrupt the auction and take the dial half back from Helena. But moments later, after he started bothering Helena, who was already trying to sell the dial half, Voller appeared, and Jones was surprised to see him still alive. Jones asked if Voller was still a Nazi, causing Helena to choke on her drink, and Voller introduced himself as Professor Schmidt. Helena ignored Jones and Voller and continued the auction, and Jones pulled the tablecloth to get the dial half, and chaos ensued. Helena stole the bag from Jones and gave it to her sidekick, Teddy Kumar. But Voller managed to get the bag from Teddy and leave the scene. When Voller was gone, Jones, Helena, and Teddy got into trouble, and the two of them were forced to escape together, which turned into them chasing each other down while also escaping the gang that was chasing Helena and Teddy. In the end, they decided to just work together and get the dial half back from Voller. Meanwhile, inside the helicopter Voller's group was in, Agent Mason has started to put two and two together. She started realizing that Voller, or Schmidt, as she knows him, has his own agenda and is up to no good. One of Agent Mason's men announced that they were landing in Spain before they went back to Alabama, and Voller tried to beg Agent Mason to at least lend him a boat to go to the Mediterranean. But Agent Mason refused, which resulted in Voller's men attacking Agent Mason and her team. Kleber shot Mason, and before she died, Voller told her his true identity. Jones, along with Helena and Teddy, traveled together, aiming to get to the Graficos before the Nazis. They went to Casablanca and then flew to Italy. And from Italy, they traveled to Athens, where Jones met up with his friend, Ronaldo, who is a deep-sea diver. On the boat, Jones and Helena were talking about the place where the dial was found. When Basil was still alive, he tracked down the old sponge diver who found the dial and learned that it was from a wrecked Roman ship, which is 20 meters under the sea. That is where they were going to look for the Graficos tablet, which would then lead them to where the dial's other half is. Later that night, Helena and Jones were having a conversation about Basil and the things they believed in. Helena learned that Jones separated from his wife, Marion, after their son, Mutt, died in the Vietnam War. The next day, they reached the Aegean Sea, where the wrecked ship is, and with the help of Ronaldo and his men, Jones and Helena dived down to get the other half of the dial. When they reached the wrecked ship, it was filled with sea creatures, and they had a hard time looking for the Graficos. After much struggle, they finally retrieved the Graficos and resurfaced, only to find that the Nazis were already in their ship, waiting for them. They couldn't do anything but sit back and watch as Voller opened the chest containing the Graficos tablet. The Graficos contains cryptic directions that would lead them to the other half of the dial, which Voller couldn't understand. So he asked Jones to read it for him. When Jones didn't do anything, Voller killed Ronaldo, and Helena offered to decipher the code for Voller in exchange for money. Jones felt betrayed as he watched Helena receive diamonds from Voller. Helena then read the Graficos tablet and realized that it was actually directions to Archimedes' tomb. Helena then went on to explain the meaning of the cryptic message, walking around the room to distract the Nazis from realizing that she was plotting something. She discreetly lit up a dynamite and threw it towards Voller. Jones grabbed the Graficos, and the three of them, Jones, Helena, and Teddy, rushed to the other boat and left. Since the dynamite exploded in the boat where the Nazis were, they couldn't leave the place immediately. Jones observed the tablet and saw that it was a Polybius square made of wax and wood that was unusually heavy. Jones poured alcohol on the tablet and set it on fire. They watched as the tablet melted, revealing the ancient gold of the Nile. Jones deciphered the code, which showed them the directions to the cave of Dionysus, which is in Sicily. They traveled to Sicily and hung around for a while. Teddy, on the other hand, was disappointed that they couldn't sell the ancient gold, so he decided to go steal some money from a boy and use it to buy ice cream. He walked around, and when he saw a car parked beside the boat, he walked towards it only to find Voller waiting for him at the bottom of the stairs. He turned to run but was captured by one of Voller's men. Jones was walking around, looking for Teddy, when he saw the Nazis taking him. He looked for Helena, and the two of them went up the hill to the cave of Dionysus. They walked into the cave and panicked, and they saw a lot of centipedes on the walls and on their clothes. They reached a labyrinthine cavern where they found Archimedes' tomb. There, they discovered the other half of the dial on top of Archimedes' skeleton. Helena squatted down beside the tomb and saw that the frieze is a phoenix with propellers. Then Jones noticed that Archimedes' skeleton was wearing a wristwatch, which is odd as watches were created a millennium after Archimedes died. They realized that Archimedes himself used the dial, which allowed him to time travel. Voller and his men arrived then, having followed them using Teddy. Cornered, Jones and Helena had no choice but to let Voller take the dial half from them. Voller connected the two halves of the dial together and took the clock part of the pendant watch before putting it in the middle of the dial. Teddy, who managed to escape from the Nazis, suddenly attacked, and Helena brought Teddy out of the cave while Jones stayed behind. Jones got shot, and Voller's men took him with them. Inside the van, Voller explained that they would fly into the eye of the storm and travel back to August 20, 1939, so he could change the outcome of the war and win instead. Meanwhile, Helena and Teddy followed them to an airfield. The Nazis flew a plane, and Helena told Teddy to steal a plane and fly it while she chased down the Nazis' plane with the bike and reached it before it left the land. Inside the plane, Jones blurted out that Archimedes didn't know continental drift, which means that the Nazis are following coordinates that are based on points that might have moved over 2,000 years. Kleber punched Jones to shut him up, and the plane reached the eye of the storm. The countdown started, and Jones warned Voller that his calculations were wrong and that, while he didn't know where they were going, he was sure that it wasn't 1939. Scared, Voller ordered the pilot to turn around, but it was too late, as they had already traveled through time. For a second, Voller thought they had reached the year 1939, but then realized that they actually went back to a war in 214 BC. Helena stepped out of her hiding place and caused Voller's men to fall out of the plane, but one of the men managed to grab hold of her legs. Jones saw her and shot the guy holding onto Helena's legs. He then took a parachute that Voller tried to steal from him. Helena shot Voller, and Jones wore the parachute. Jones climbed down so Helena could hold onto him, and they both left the damaged plane. On the other hand, Kleber was shooting down the Romans on the ground, enraging them. Voller stood beside him, and they watched as they crashed to the ground. Meanwhile, one of the civilians in that timeline seemed to know about the dial and went to Voller's crashed plane. He observed Voller's body and took his wristwatch. His servant saw the dial and handed it to him. Jones and Helena reached the ground, and despite the war they were witnessing, Jones was amazed as they were witnessing history with their own eyes. Jones then told Helena that he'd been studying history for a long time, and now that he's inside a real history, he wants to stay there forever. Helena refused to leave him there, especially since he'd been shot and probably wouldn't last long if he didn't get treated immediately. Teddy landed, the plane was flying nearby, and a Romanian warrior suddenly came, aiming to attack them but getting shot by an arrow. Jones and Helena saw a man approaching them. Jones was over the moon when he realized that the man was none other than Archimedes himself. Archimedes showed them the dial, stating that they were always meant to meet him. It was then that Jones realized Archimedes created the dial to get some help to win the war. Jones told Archimedes that he wanted to stay, and Helena cut in before Archimedes could agree, saying that their arrival had already scared the Romans away and they didn't need help anymore. Helena's voice cracked as she tried to convince Jones to go back to their own timeline. Jones was adamant on staying in 214 BC, but Helena was even more adamant on taking him back. So she knocked him out, and when Jones woke up, he was already back in 1969. Helena and Teddy were there, both looking well, and moments later, Jones' ex-wife, Marion, came, followed by Salah and his children. Seeing Jones and Marion together in one room, everyone decided to leave them alone. Jones and Marion reunited, and the two of them welcomed each other again. Even though he didn't get to stay with Archimedes, Jones was still happy to be back in 1969 now that Marion had come back to him.